The universe had a twisted sense of humor, but it paled in comparison to the irony unfolding in Laboratory 7B of the Galactic Research Consortium's Xeno-Behavioral Studies Division. "Subject appears to be conscious again," announced the chief researcher, a lanky, blue-skinned Taurian with 4 arms and a doctorate in 17 disciplines, none of which apparently included common sense. "Vital signs stabilized at what this species considers normal, which is frankly alarming by our standards." 3 different species of scientists huddled around a reinforced observation window. Their tentacles, appendages, and sensory organs focused on the humanoid figure strapped to an examination table in the sterile chamber beyond. The human, a male specimen collected during what Earthlings called first contact, but what the Galactic Registry logged as routine acquisition of underdeveloped planetary species, number 42291H77D, appeared remarkably unbothered by his circumstances. The consortium had perfected the art of species abduction over millennia. Technically, it wasn't abduction, but non-consensual biological sampling with knowledge retention. The legal department had worked overtime on that bit of linguistic gymnastics. "This is the 7th procedure we've performed, and its cardiovascular system hasn't even shown elevated stress markers," whispered an Arachnian researcher, her mandibles clicking with frustration. "The previous 6 test subjects from more advanced worlds went into complete systemic shock during the baseline examination alone. Perhaps its brain is too primitive to comprehend danger," suggested a gelatinous blob of consciousness that served as the facility's psychological expert. The human yawned. The researchers exchanged worried glances. "That's a threat display?" asked a junior technician, nervously adjusting his protective exoskeleton. "No," replied the chief researcher. "Apparently it's just tired or bored." He pronounced the word as if describing an exotic disease. "Either way, it doesn't make sense. This creature comes from a Class 7 death world. Its species spends their existence surrounded by predators, environmental hazards, and their own self-destructive tendencies. They should be hardwired for fear responses." What the researchers failed to understand was that their subject, who had a name, thank you very much, not that anyone had asked, was accustomed to worse than lying on a clean table in a temperature-controlled room. Back on Earth, he'd worked nights at a 24-hour convenience store in Detroit. Customer service had prepared him for encounters far more terrifying than anything space could throw at him. The human shifted slightly against his restraints. "You know I can hear you, right?" he called out in a bored tone. "These walls aren't soundproof." The researchers froze, their postures suggesting they hadn't considered that their subject might understand the universal translator. Another oversight in a growing list. "How unexpected," the chief researcher managed, attempting to save face. "The subject demonstrates comprehension capabilities beyond our models." "The subject has a name," the human replied dryly, "and the subject thinks your models suck." A moment of shocked silence followed. The gelatinous psychologist bubbled indignantly. "This is unprecedented. No test subject has ever criticized our methodology before." "Yeah, well, maybe you should stop abducting people who are too scared to call you on your bullshit," the human replied, rolling his eyes. The junior technician made a notation. "Subject displays aggression through verbal communication. Fascinating." "That's not aggression," corrected the human. "That's sarcasm. You guys should try it sometime. Might liven up those research papers you're probably writing." The chief researcher straightened his lab coat with all four hands simultaneously, a sign of extreme discomfort among Taurians. We are conducting important scientific research for the benefit of all galactic species. By kidnapping random people and poking them. Yeah, that tracks. The human's casual dismissal sent ripples of consternation through the team. The consortium's Xeno-Behavioral Studies Division held the highest clearance levels in 17 galactic sectors. Their findings shaped interspecies policy throughout known space. And here was this primitive mammal from a backwater planet questioning their methods like he was critiquing a mediocre restaurant. We've studied over 9,000 sentient species, the Arachnean informed him haughtily. Our protocols are refined to perfection. And yet you didn't even offer me a magazine while I wait. Customer service needs work. The human smirked, setting off proximity alarms in 3 security systems designed to detect aggressive behavior. The chief researcher silenced the alarms with a practiced gesture. Perhaps we should proceed to the next phase of testing, the fear response experiment. A murmur of agreement passed through the scientists. Finally, they would see this infuriatingly calm creature demonstrate appropriate terror. Every species had its breaking point. The fear gas had been developed to target the primal centers of any brain configuration, stimulating whatever neurochemical cocktail produced terror in that biology. Prepare the aerosolized compound, ordered the chief researcher, his professional demeanor restored. And somebody adjust the restraints. I want accurate biometric readings when the fear response begins. As the team bustled about, the human stared at the ceiling, seemingly counting tiles. In reality, he was taking inventory of his situation. A month ago, he'd been restocking energy drinks at 3 a.m. when a light appeared outside the store's grimy windows. He'd assumed it was a particularly ambitious tweaker until the building vibrated. Next thing he knew, he was being processed like a new arrival at the world's most thorough DMV. The human had spent 4 years in the military before his convenience store gig, deployed to 3 conflict zones, and once accidentally walked into a senior officer's performance review. His fear threshold was somewhere between active artillery fire and his mom using his full name. These alien scientists had no idea what they were up against. Initiating environmental seal, announced the junior technician as airtight barriers hummed into place. Fear compound primed for dispersal. Begin recording all neural responses, added the chief researcher. This will be a textbook case study. The Arachnean adjusted a control panel with 3 limbs. Subject's baseline neurological state logged, cardiopulmonary functions stable, all monitoring systems active. Disperse the compound, ordered the chief researcher, anticipation in his voice. A fine mist seeped into the chamber through nearly invisible vents, carrying a slight greenish tint. The research team leaned forward, appendages poised over recording devices. The human's nasal passages detected the gas. His brain processed the information. His neural pathways prepared for the chemical assault. And then he did something that would change galactic xenobiology forever. He took a deep breath, lips curling into what his species called a smile, but the security system categorized as a pre-attack facial configuration. The monitoring equipment registered no spike in stress hormones, no accelerated heart rate, no pupil dilation, nothing indicating fear. Instead, the human turned toward the observation window and spoke 4 words that would be archived in the Galactic Library of Historical Inflection Points. It kind of smells like home. The stunned silence lasted 8.7 seconds. a new record for collective speechlessness in the consortium's 4,000-year history, surpassing the previous record set when a Jovian diplomat accidentally dissolved during peace negotiations after mistaking cleaning fluid for a beverage. Did it just? The gelatinous psychologist couldn't finish, its amorphous form rippling with confusion. Yes, confirmed the chief researcher, checking the readings for the third time. It appears to be enjoying the compound. The human's vitals had improved upon exposure. His brain wave patterns showed a nostalgia response, and his muscular tension decreased by 12%. The data suggested comfort. Impossible, declared the Arachnean, all 8 eyes blinking rapidly. The compound is calibrated to trigger terror responses across 94.3% of all known sentient neural configurations. Dispersal functioning within optimal parameters, chirped the lab's AI. Compound concentration at 34 parts per million and rising. The human, now looking more comfortable despite the restraints, sighed contentedly. You know, this really takes me back. Reminds me of summer evenings in my hometown. The chemical plant down the river used to release something that smelled exactly like this around sunset. Your species deliberately releases neurotoxins into your atmosphere. The junior technician's voice rose several octaves. Not deliberately, no, more like enthusiastically negligent. The human shrugged as much as the restraints allowed. The company eventually paid a fine, like $50 or something, cheaper than fixing the leak. The chief researcher conferred with his colleagues, mandibles, tentacles, and appendages gesticulating with scientific panic. Fear gas was supposed to induce fear, not reminiscence. Perhaps increase the concentration, suggested the gelatinous blob, quivering anxiously. The subject might have an unusually high tolerance. The chief researcher nodded all 3 headstalks. Increase to 100 parts per million and activate the secondary compound. Secondary compound activated, confirmed the technician. The mist thickened, taking on a sickly yellow hue as the new chemical merged with the original formula. This mixture, the result of decades of research, had once caused a draconian war general to flee from its own shadow. The human sniffed twice, then grinned. Oh, that's nice. Now it smells like the subway station near my apartment after a heavy rain when all the industrial runoff comes up through the drains. This is unprecedented, whispered the Arachnean, furiously documenting. Its system should be shutting down from terror. Or at least displaying some measurable anxiety, added the psychologist. The human looked disappointed when the gas dissipated. Oh, show's over already. I was just starting to feel homesick. The observation room erupted into activity. Researchers cross-referenced data, consulted xenobiological texts, and recalibrated equipment. None of their actions explained the human's bizarre reaction. We must consider the possibility, ventured the chief researcher carefully, that we have encountered a unique evolutionary adaptation. Or a fluke, countered the Arachnean. One specimen is hardly a representative sample. The human cleared his throat loudly. Once again, I can hear everything you're saying, and it's not a fluke. Where I come from, this stuff is practically aromatherapy. You intentionally expose yourselves to neurotoxins for therapeutic purposes. The junior technician looked like he might faint, which for his species involved partial liquefaction. What? No, well, not officially, the human considered. Though there was this one wellness influencer who sold industrial-adjacent essential oils. Pretty sure she got arrested eventually. The chief researcher approached the observation window, curiosity overcoming protocol. Your species considers toxic chemicals familiar, comfortable. Not all of us, the human admitted. Just those who grew up in certain places, the places your fancy galactic maps probably mark as industrial centers or whatever. We categorize Earth habitation zones by ecological viability, corrected the chief researcher. The most problematic areas are designated as Class D habitability zones. Yeah, we call those neighborhoods with good property values, the human snorted. Look, I grew up downwind from 3 factories. One made tires, one made fertilizer, and nobody knew what the third one made, but it turned the snow purple every February. The researchers exchanged horrified glances. The gelatinous psychologist turned a distressed shade of mauve. "And your species survived these conditions?" asked the Arachnean. "Survived. We paid extra to live there, great school district." "Impossible," muttered the junior technician. "The developmental impact alone." Yeah, 3 eyes, extra thumb, glowing in the dark. We've heard all the jokes," the human interrupted. "But seriously, that gas you pumped in here? Amateur hour. When I was a kid, the air in my bedroom was so thick you could chew it. Mom used to say it built character." "Your maternal unit deliberately exposed her offspring to mutagens." The psychologist was now recording every word for a groundbreaking paper on human psychological aberrations. "Not deliberately. It was just there, everywhere. If the wind blew from the east, your eyes would water. From the west, your skin would itch. From the north, well, nobody talked about what happened when it blew from the north." The human shuddered dramatically, then laughed. "I'm kidding. From the north, it just made all the neighborhood dogs bark in harmony. Kind of pretty, actually." The chief researcher struggled to process this. "Yet your species shows no signs of systemic neurological damage." "Oh, we're definitely damaged," the human assured him cheerfully. "But not from the chemicals. That's just from the crushing existential dread of late-stage capitalism. Completely different issue." The research team took a collective step back from the window. Something about the humans' casual relationship with environmental toxins made them deeply uncomfortable, challenging everything they understood about species survival. "Let's try one more variant," suggested the chief researcher, curiosity overriding unease. "Formulation X-27. The room fell silent. Even the junior technician looked alarmed. "X-27 has never been tested on sentient subjects," whispered the Arachnean. "It's theoretical at best, catastrophic at worst. This subject has proven resistant to our standard compounds," argued the chief researcher. "X-27 represents our most advanced understanding of fear biochemistry." After a brief but intense debate, during which the human whistled tunelessly and appeared to nap, the decision was made. Formulation X-27, a compound so potent it was stored in a quantum-sealed container to prevent it from inducing panic in nearby star systems, would be deployed. "Preparing minimal dose of X-27, announced the junior technician, handling controls as if they might bite. "Environmental seals at maximum. All non-essential personnel should evacuate to safe distance." Several researchers hurried out. The gelatinous psychologist extended a pseudopod to activate emergency containment protocols. "A dispersal in 3-2-1. A barely perceptible shimmer entered the chamber, more a disturbance than visible gas. The researchers held their breath, respiratory organs constricting in anticipation. The human sat up straighter, sniffing curiously. His eyes widened slightly, the first genuine reaction they'd observed. Now that's interesting, he said with a hint of respect. That smells exactly like the chemical spill we had in Zero-2. They evacuated 3 counties, and a guy from the EPA showed up in one of those big bubble suits. He inhaled deeply, showing no signs of the convulsive terror expected. I never thought I'd smell that again. They said the compound was completely neutralized. He looked almost nostalgic. That was a fun summer. No school for 2 months while they decontaminated. Spent the whole time in the quarry. Had to shower with special soap after, but totally worth it. The chief researcher's composure cracked. How are you not experiencing fear? X-27 contains elements that should trigger primal terror in any carbon-based life form. The human looked puzzled. I mean, it's just air, right? Weird air, sure, but still air. He frowned thoughtfully. I guess I did develop that weird immunity thing after the water supply got contaminated during my sophomore year. The doctors were pretty interested in that, wrote some papers. Immunity to neurotoxins. The Arachnean's voice was faint. More like a general resistance to environmental hazards. The human shrugged as if discussing a pollen allergy. Side effect of growing up where I did. Most of my graduating class had something similar, the ones who graduated. As the implications sank in, something unprecedented happened in Laboratory 7B, the chief researcher. With 17 doctorates and publications in over 300 journals, experienced genuine fear. Not from any chemical, but because he understood what it meant to come from a world where breathing poison bred nostalgia rather than terror. Word of the human's immunity spread through the station faster than a quantum virus. Within hours, scientists invented pretexts to pass by Laboratory 7B, hoping to glimpse the creature who'd huffed X-27 and survived. The human was upgraded from test subject to research anomaly of significant interest, earning better accommodations and actual food instead of nutritional paste, a meaningful step up in the grand scheme of involuntary abductions. So let me get this straight, the human said, lounging in his new quarters chair. You guys have mapped the galaxy, developed faster-than-light travel, and figured out instant language translation, but you're baffled by a guy from Earth not being afraid of bad smells. The chief researcher, conducting this follow-up interview personally, shifted uncomfortably. Your characterization oversimplifies. X-27 isn't just a bad smell. It's a precisely engineered neurochemical trigger designed to activate fear responses at the most fundamental level. Yeah, well, so is the air freshener in gas station bathrooms back home. But you don't see us making a big deal about it, the human replied, biting into a synthesized apple that tasted like a computer's guess at fruit. The chief researcher's note-taking appendage scribbled frantically. Your planet's atmospheric conditions are of great interest now. Our preliminary scans indicated pollutant levels within tolerable parameters for developing civilizations. But your testimony suggests localized concentrations far exceeding our models. Earth is complicated, the human said, tossing the apple core into a disposal unit. Some parts are clean, national parks, rich people's neighborhoods. But where I'm from, let's just say the EPA inspection team drew straws to decide who had to visit. EPA. Environmental Protection Agency. They show up after the damage is done, put up yellow tape, and say the cancer clusters are probably coincidence. The chief researcher's headstalk twitched with distress. Your species knowingly permits carcinogenic exposure. Permits it? Hell, we subsidize it. The human laughed humorlessly. There's a chemical plant that's been accidentally dumping into the river for 3 generations. Every few years, they pay a fine less than a day's profit, issue a press release about sustainability, and keep dumping. and your governing authorities allow this. They give them tax breaks for providing jobs. Sure, the jobs shave about 15 years off your lifespan, but that means reduced pension costs, so everybody wins except the workers. The Arachnean, observing silently from a corner, spoke up. We theorized humans possessed unusual resilience given your planet's conditions, but we never suspected environmental self-sabotage as an adaptation strategy. It's not a strategy, the human corrected. It's good old-fashioned greed. Why spend money ensuring your byproducts don't cause three-headed fish when you can pocket the cash? Basic economics. The researchers exchanged troubled glances. But surely, the chief researcher ventured, your species recognizes the long-term detriment to planetary habitability. The human snorted. Have you met humans? Long-term planning isn't our strong suit. We're more quarterly prophets, worry about the apocalypse later. An alert chimed on the chief researcher's communicator. He checked it, then looked up with renewed interest. The comprehensive analysis of your biological samples is complete. The results are unprecedented. Let me guess, I've got enough heavy metals to qualify as an industrial site. Among other findings, yes. Your cellular structure shows remarkable adaptation to substances lethal to most carbon-based life forms. Your body has mechanisms to neutralize or sequester compounds our medical database classifies as immediately fatal. The human shrugged. Yeah, the doctors back home always had a field day with my blood work, said my liver was either failing or superhuman, couldn't decide. More intriguingly, the chief researcher continued, these adaptations are epigenetic, not evolutionary. Your body adapted within your lifetime, not over generations. Adapt or die, right? And dying wasn't an option, had bills to pay. The Arachnean approached, curiosity overcoming trepidation. This raises profound questions about human physiological potential. If we can adapt to that within one lifetime, the human finished with a grin that made both researchers back up. Imagine what we could do if we actually tried. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication. The station's high administrator, a being of such rank it communicated through subordinates, requested an immediate briefing on the human subject. This is unprecedented, whispered the chief researcher. The administrator never takes personal interest in individual subjects. I'm special that way, the human replied, stretching lazily. So what now? More gas chambers. Maybe try radiation next. I spent 3 summers as a lifeguard at a pool downhill from a nuclear plant, so fair warning, you might be disappointed with those results, too. The administrator will determine next steps, the chief researcher replied, standing. But I suspect your status may be reclassified. Meaning your species may require significant reassessment. The consortium categorizes civilizations based on technological advancement, social development, and biological resilience. Your demonstrations may elevate humanity's classification considerably. The human's eyebrows rose, all because I didn't freak out over some fancy alien tear gas. All because you've revealed humans may possess adaptive capabilities far beyond our current understanding, corrected the Arachnean. The implications for galactic xenobiology and security are profound. As the researchers departed,